Inconceivable. 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 Inconceivable.
Hi, Scoff.
Hi, Wonk.
How are you?
Alive? How are you?
Alive.
I'm alive.
We're both alive. Wow.
I mean, yes.
There's something you know that I don't know.
just there are many secrets. There are many.
Afraid.
The dark side, honey. The dark side holds many abilities, some of which you might consider to be unnatural.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is really weird coming from you.
Why?
Because you're the cynical one who doesn't believe in anything supernatural.
I believe in Star Wars movies.
Okay.
I'm just trying to mix it up. I don't know. Welcome back.
Okay.
We're peoples. We have stuff to tell you, stories to share, and shout-outs to give.
Yay! So my shout-out this week is for Ye Olde Crime Podcast.
Like Ye Olde?
Yeah, Ye Olde.
That's amazing.
I know. So, I mean, obviously Scoff hasn't listened to these. I'm kind of the one who's doing all the shout-outs here. But it is true crime, so, you know, it's mostly for people who are into that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But this one I think has an edge because it's old school true crime, so it has that historical kind of aspect.
Define old school. Like I'm picturing
really old school.
I'm picturing like Jack the Ripper and like gangsters
even
with
more
Tommy
than that
guns.
sometimes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So really old cases that a lot of people maybe haven't heard of. So I think that it can appeal to both history buffs and true crime lovers. So yeah.
I might actually have to check it out after this.
Yeah, there you go. So if
I'm
either
a
if you
history
like either of those things, go check them out. I also have to talk about this because we've been watching Broadchurch on Netflix.
You should watch it.
This is an amazing show. The acting here is top notch, and it's one of those more intense whodunits. You know what I mean?
It's
a lot of red herrings.
Yeah, I was about to say this thing should be called Red Herring the Show, but not all the red herrings are completely misleading. Like you'll learn something and be like, oh yeah, that's interesting. That probably means this person did something, and then later you'll find out like, oh, so that looked super guilty. But with the new context, it's still a little odd, but it's not the thing we're looking for.
Yeah. So it's not. The reason I like it is because it's all so well thought out.
Yeah.
That it's not just red herrings that throw you off the trail and have no purpose other than to do that. Everything that happens is worked into the story somehow.
Yeah.
But it makes it very hard for you to kind of figure out what actually did happen when the crime took place. So that was really good.
We've finished watching it. I'd be curious to see if it is possible to figure out who done it in like the first... Because obviously you find out stuff by like the end of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, if like the first 3 episodes, if you're paying close enough attention.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to rewatch it for that purpose.
Yeah, and just keep the eye out, you know?
But I just wanted to give a shout out because I have watched a lot of similar shows, and I've never seen acting that I want to praise as much as the acting in this show. It's extraordinary.
It's very good acting.
So, go check it out. Yeah, that's the end of our shout outs. Anything else you want to add for our little housekeeping?
I got nothing.
Alright then. Shall we move on to our season finale?
We shall. Season finale.
I'm so excited.
I can tell you have a stupid grin on your face. It's going ear to ear.
So, for those of you who might have missed our last episode, we announced that our season finales at the end of every season are going to be a way to showcase the shorter stories that can't take up the length of a full episode. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a theme, and I'm going to have 3 stories, and they're going to be 2 true stories and 1 fake story. So It's basically following the concept of the game 2 Truths and a Lie. And while Scoff is usually in each episode just deciding if the story is conceivable or not, here he's actually also going to be deciding which one of these are true stories that I actually found records of, and which one of these is total bullshit. Just completely fake.
Just complete and utter caca del toro.
Yeah.
Crap of the bull.
So, are we ready, guys? Are you excited?
I'm curious.
I'm so excited. Alright, so, season finale.
Season finale. Story number 1.
So this is going to be the first of our special episode tradition. And like I said, the 3 stories are going to be related by a theme.
Yes.
The theme this week is books that came true in real life.
Okay.
So keep that in mind when I'm discussing each of the stories. And I've purposefully... I'm purposefully going to talk about the stories in order of the publication of the book. Just so that I'm not, like, creating a specific order when I'm doing this. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Like, purposefully saying, okay, story 1 is true, story 2 is true, and then the last one's a lie.
Yeah,
Story 1 is true, story 2 is a lie, and story 3 is true. Like, for me trying to make an algorithm where it always changes, that's just going to be too hard. So...
No, I gotcha.
I'm just doing it in...
Remind me, though, I got a
sense.
couple, mini examples of what it sounds like you're about to discuss afterwards that you might not have heard of. Things where it's, like, been predicted in a weird way. I'll talk about it with you after.
Okay.
We'll discuss it. We'll save time at the end. But for now, introduce. Go.
Alright, so book number 1.
Book number 1.
The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket. Have you heard of that?
No.
Published in 1838, the only novel published by Edgar Allan Poe.
What?
You know who Edgar Allan Poe is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the poet.
Yeah, he published a novel?
This is the only book... I think it's more of a novella. I think it's shorter. But, yeah. That's the only one he's ever done. So, this is what happens in the book.
For those of you at home that don't know, a novella is just a shorter book.
Yes.
Like, I think a book is like 50,000
It has
words
to
or
be
something.
50,000
and a
usually.
novella is less than that, but more than, like, a short story.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Anyway, so I'm going to break down what happens in the book, and then I'm going to break down what happened in real life that mimicked the book. Does that make sense? So, in the book, the characters are on a whaling ship called the Grampus, which sounds like...
The Grampus?
To me, it sounds like Krampus, you know, like the creepy version of Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Except a grandpa version of that. A Grampus.
It's instead of like this terrifying... I think it's like a German folktale.
Yeah,
Krampus,
something
whatever.
like that.
It's just this guy comes in and like, oh, I'm coming for you. Oh, I need to take my pills. And then collapse, like, alright.
Yeah, anyways, that's what it's called. And then on the whaling ship, a mutiny occurs. 3 men eventually take hold of the ship again, so the mutiny is a failure. They take back control of the ship.
Okay.
They kill all of the mutineers except for one 17-year-old Richard Parker. And that's an important name to remember, Richard Parker.
Richard Parker.
Because they think he's going to be useful in helping to run the vessel that they've gotten back.
I mean, that makes sense. How many mutineers were there? 3?
No, there were 3 men who gained control after the mutiny failed.
Depending on
it doesn't say how many mutineers.
Depending on what type of ship it is, yeah, you need a certain amount of people to run it.
Yeah. So, it's a whaling ship, so I don't really know.
Yeah, you'd still need a
about
couple.
Anyways, but the Grampus floods during a storm, and the crew is lost at sea without any food or water, so that's sad.
Sucks to suck.
And I didn't know this was an actual thing, but according to the actual customs of the sea, the men draw straws to see which sucker gets to sacrifice his flesh to the rest of them.
Yeah. I don't.
Like,
I'm
did
not
you
sure
think this
that's
was an actual thing? I thought this was just a movie thing.
I can't imagine this is still necessarily a thing, but it does make sense.
It makes sense for survival purposes, but it sounds very...
Like, if you have no idea when or if you're going to be rescued,
yeah, I guess.
you'd be like, hey, Johnny, you looking like you got a big belly. Let's, yeah.
Alright. Anyways, they drew straws. They don't just pick somebody.
Yeah.
So the straws are drawn, and unfortunately, Mr. Richard Parker, the one that they allowed to survive, is the one who lost. He got the...
Yeah.
Is it the shortest straw or something? I forget. So then, cannibalism.
You do what you gotta do.
I should mention this is just a small part of the book, and not the entirety of the narrative.
Okay.
So this is just a little piece. There's other stuff that happens before and after the storm and stuff, but this is the portion that is focused on.
Yeah.
So, in real life now. On a yacht called the Mignonette in 1884, which would make this...
50 years?
So 38 and 84.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thereabouts, 46 years, give or take.
So the yacht sinks, leaving 4 men on this small wooden dinghy. And one of the, like, it just says a young lad, so a younger guy who was on there overdosed on salt water and got sick.
Okay.
So the captain and mate just decide to kill him and eat him.
And let me guess, his name
Richard Parker.
was Richard Parker.
And this name is now a famous name associated with sea tragedies.
Yeah.
Because it's not just apparently this real case and the book that involves this name. Apparently there have been other cases that involve the name Richard Parker. I think the person who wrote Life of Pi named his character Richard Parker based on this. I can't remember. But
I
it's an
think
actual thing.
this is completely believable.
It's called like the cursed name.
The cursed name. So that's not what we're naming our kids.
No.
But I think this is completely believable for a couple of reasons. Richard Parker seems to me like to be a relatively common name.
That's true.
I don't know what, like, I'd have to do research on, like, the commonality of names during that time period.
Yeah.
But, like, Parker is a relatively common last name.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, it's not like Smith. And, like, the first name isn't like John, but I think Richard is also pretty common. Because you can...
Especially depends on where you are in the world, too.
Yeah, you can name someone Richard and call them, like, Robbie, or Rob, or Dick, or... You know, something like that. Bobby.
Yeah.
Yes, I've heard that. It's weird.
That's interesting.
So, I can see it. I think that is absolutely true. I don't think you made that one up.
All right.
I think that one's true.
Moving on to book number 2. This one's called The Wreck of the Titan by Morgan Robertson, 1898. Have you heard of this one?
No.
Alrighty. 1898. He writes an eerily similar catastrophe to a very well-known one. You're gonna realize what it is when I start talking.
Oh!
You know.
I know this one.
The largest ship ever built.
Oh, yeah.
Called the Unsinkable Modern Marvel, ahead of its time, etc.
The Queen Elizabeth. No, the Titanic.
But in the book, it was called the Titan.
Yeah.
The Titan.
Titanic.
Huge difference, I know.
That's, I mean, you know.
These are all of the facts that make the similarities so creepy. So listen to this. In the book, the boat called the Titan was around 800 feet long.
Yeah.
Titanic, 882 feet long.
Which, if I remember correctly, the Titanic was one of the largest ships built at the time, too. And the book, I don't remember what year the Titanic sank. It was like 1930s?
I'll get to that.
Okay.
I'm first talking about the...
Yeah, so it kind of predicted a really big ship, though.
It did.
Okay.
So, and it was, so in the book, it's called all the same things. It's called Unsinkable, it's called a modern marvel, ahead of its time, biggest ship, all the same things as the Titanic in real life.
Alright.
But getting to that. So, in the book, it was only carrying 24 lifeboats. The Titanic was carrying 20. Both boats hit an iceberg on the starboard side deck. Both happen in the North Atlantic. Both happen in April. The real sinking happened April 1912.
1912, I was a loft.
Yeah. Both happened 400 miles from Newfoundland.
Hey! Oh, Canada.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So that's creepy.
That is a little creepy. That is a lot of similarities.
Same length, same number of lifeboats, basically. Both hit an iceberg. Both on the same side of the boat. Both in the North Atlantic. Both in the same month. Both at the same distance from Newfoundland.
Yeah, that's a little odd.
That's a little odd.
It's a little odd.
So this prediction, quote unquote, happened literally 14 years before this happened. Huh. So I'm pretty, at this point the Titanic wasn't even built. Because it was his maiden voyage.
It wouldn't even necessarily have been I don't know how long it takes to build a ship that size, but you said 12, right? 1912's post-industrial revolution. It's going to be faster to kind of build things like that. I believe you could probably build the Titanic. It probably took them like 8-ish years, 6 to 8 years.
In any case, this would have been before.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, like, there's no way he would have talked to someone who was like...
Yeah, who was like,
hey,
we're building a ship.
We're building a big old boat here. That's how they talked back then, you know, with their Wario-style mustaches and pipes. Like, hey, we're building a boat, huh? It's gonna be the biggest boat ever, see? We'll call it the Unsinkable Boat. And he was like, thanks for the idea.
I'm gonna go write a book now.
I'm gonna go write a book.
Yeah.
So that, yeah.
But even then, yeah, just... No one could have predicted the accident.
No,
and
that's
all
weird.
the details of the accident in the book are exactly the same, which is just terrifying to me. And so, obviously, this author, Morgan Robertson, was denying claims that he was a clairvoyant. Because so many people had read the book,
Yeah.
and then they hear about the accident, and they're like, what the hell? And they're contacting him, and he kept getting hassled. I feel bad for him, kind of. Because he keeps getting hassled by these people who are like, how did you predict this? Are you a clairvoyant? Why didn't you stop it? And he's like, guys, I'm not a psychic.
Yeah.
I just wrote a book and it happened in real life.
Well, and like, depending on how, like, the similarities are close, but they're not exact, right? So it's like, I totally believe that, one, I do believe that this is a true story, but two, I do believe that, like, this definitely could happen. It is unlikely in the extreme, but I consider this very conceivable, and he doesn't have to be, like, a clairvoyant or anything like that. Like, he wrote a book about a very large ship that sunk in relatively the same area. Starboard versus the, what is it, starboard port?
To starboard, yeah.
That's like a 50-50 chance. It's like, throw that up to just random coinky-dink.
Okay.
The location is the part that I'm a little like,
And both in April?
And the April. It's like, okay, you got a 1 in 12 shot there for the month.
And both short on lifeboats? Because it was called Unsinkable.
Yeah.
You know?
People are
it's just
stupid.
Really, I don't know. I find this case super creepy. Way more creepy than the Richard Parker thing. Anyway, you ready for book number 3?
I'm ready for book number 3.
Alright, here we go. This one is called Debt of Honor by Tom Clancy, written in 1994. And it's a sequel to The Sum of All Fears. And it features an apparently well-known character called Jack Ryan.
Okay.
Do you know Jack Ryan?
I know who Tom Clancy is.
Oh, okay. Because I hadn't heard, but apparently it's a well-known character.
I don't know Jack Ryan.
Anyway. So, the book talks about Japanese plots to raise Japan up and bring America down, basically. And there are several plots that happen in the book, one of which is trying to engineer the collapse of the U.S. stock market.
Okay.
So that's one of their plots. The event that takes place in the book, that's eerily similar to a real-life event, is when a terrorist hijacks a jetliner and crashes it into, you guessed it,
Twin Towers.
World Trade Center. Eerie. So, Clancy also has had to deny claims of being a modern seer. He claims that he just researches and really understands human nature.
Yeah, so that's one of those, like, that'd be like me writing a book saying that there was an attack on, like, let's pick a historical place. Like, something's gonna happen to Big Ben. Mm-hmm. Right? 30 years from now, it's entirely possible there's going to be, like, some sort of attack
that's fair.
or major damage or weather catastrophe.
Right. Except terrorist hijacks a jetliner and crashes it into the World Trade Center.
Maybe this is where they got the idea.
The terrorists?
Maybe. Listen, I don't know how literate your average suicide bomber is.
Also, I forgot to put those dates side by side. So we have 1994 is when the book was published, and then 9/11 is the actual event. Sorry, just had to clarify that. What were you saying?
It's gone.
I'm sorry.
It's like
we were talking about how
it's like a fart in the wind. It's out there. You can't get it back.
No, you were talking about how the terrorists.
Oh, maybe they just read the book.
Oh, man. Is
Again,
that what they do? They just sit around and they're like, okay, these are all the novels we have depicting terrorist attacks, so I want everyone to split up, pick a book. Tell me if there's some juicy ideas in there.
I feel like if I was a terrorist, I would just make a list of targets for, like, every country. Like, you're like, listen,
you mean people
these are...
or, like, monuments?
Yes, both.
Okay.
I'd say, like, this is my list. And then, I'd be like, you know what? I'm just gonna go read some literature. You're looking for crazy ideas, you're looking for true crime stuff, and then some guy sees this and he's like, I don't know, Jim, get over here, I got, whatever. Yes, I know most terrorists are named Jim.
Are they?
It's a very common name. Yeah, it's weird, actually.
All right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The more you know.
Which one of these do you think is real?
I think the first two are real.
Okay.
Because I know the second one's real.
Yeah, you'd heard of that one.
I've heard of that one.
I figured you did, but just for our listeners who hadn't,
it's a good story.
Is such a crazy coincidence, if it's a coincidence.
The first one, I believe, is real. Just because that to me makes sense. The last one I don't believe. But it might be my own bias, because I know Tom Clancy. Mm-hmm. I know he's written books. I'm pretty sure he's also done stuff for video games.
I have no idea.
I think the Ghost Recon series is Tom Clancy's. Which, sidebar really quick. Actually, I'll do it afterwards. So, yeah. Reveal information. Which one is the lie?
Okay. So you were right. Number 3 is
the
lie. Except, the only detail I changed is that in the book, the terrorist crashes into the Washington's Capitol building.
That's really the only thing you changed.
Yeah.
That's insane.
So there is actually a book where this terrorist attack happens.
So that's your game. I thought you were making like a brand new story.
Well,
You're changing
No, that's what I was...
cheeky bastard.
Just to clarify for Scoff and for listeners, my plan is definitely... like in a lot of future finales, is to make up something.
Yeah.
But I found a lot of cases of books that supposedly predicted the future.
Yeah.
So I thought it might be easier for me to take one and just try and change it around to make it even more believable. So I thought changing it so that it actually crashes into the same place.
I like that.
Would make it more compelling. Good. I'm glad you liked it. That was good. But yeah, fun fact. This book, Debt of Honor, is a thing, and it did actually predict a terrorist crashing into a monument. It's just not the same monument. So,
and see that makes a lot more sense, because like it's not necessarily the most obvious book to write, but it's like, hey, terrorists are attacking. They're going to attack a place of importance.
In this case, yeah, Washington's Capitol building.
That's interesting. That was a good one.
Thank you.
But so here's my thing. As soon as you kind of told me the premise of today's show, I started thinking about this in my head. So there's, as opposed to thinking of it outside my head, I've seen a lot of like shows and video games and movies and stuff that have said to predict it. And some of them I find fascinating. Mm-hmm. Some of them are little stuff, like The Simpsons predicted Donald Trump as the president long before it happened.
What?
Yes. Family Guy.
Is this not a sign that is the stupidest thing that could have happened?
It's on The Simpsons.
Like The Simpsons, because The Simpsons would be making fun of it. Like, who would be the stupidest person for president?
They're just like, let's go for it. Family Guy predicted, not necessarily predicted, but it kind of like foreshadowed Bruce Jenner's gender change.
Oh.
There's a weird episode where, I can't remember if it's like a cutaway for something, but he's basically dancing in front of a bunch of sailors. It's Family Guy, so you know it's weird. On board like a ship. And Peter's like, just so you all remember what you're fighting for. And it's a very, like, it's meant to be very, I guess, feminine style dancing. Like, kind of like, you picture, like, you picture sailors going into, like, old-timey bars.
Like a brothel.
Yeah, there's, like, the women, like, dancing and all that when you think of, like, World War I and World War II. It was kind of reminiscent of that. And, the other big one I can think of right now, which actually kind of relates to the last story, I believe.
Oh, are you talking about the video game?
Game called Deus Ex.
I was gonna mention the game. I didn't remember the name of it.
In Deus Ex, for whatever reasons, the hardware they're using, because this game came out like '96 or something like that. Like it was before 9/11, but for whatever reason, I think it was Deus Ex. Might have been a different one. They couldn't render the background properly of New York. I think it was New York, where the Twin Towers was. Right?
Yeah, but from what I remember, they forgot to include...
And then they made it part of the plot.
Yeah. So, just to clarify for our listeners, I did actually hear about... While I was doing the research, I heard about the video game.
Yeah.
And from what I remember about reading it, I didn't actually write it down, but basically, when they tried... Maybe it was a rendering. I thought it was when they actually tried to recreate the skyline of New York.
They forgot it or something.
They forgot to include the World Trade Center towers. And they were like, oh crap, now it doesn't look real because we forgot this. And then they included it into the plot by saying that it had been the victim of a terrorist attack.
And this came out before 9/11.
Yeah. So that was another creepy coincidence, and had people being like, how did you know? How did you predict this?
Yeah.
And people had to be like, listen, it was literally a coincidence. We forgot to include it in the skyline during the video game. But in any case, I guess weird. I guess if there's multiple cases of sort of the same thing happening, it makes the coincidence seem more plausible. Like it could just be coincidence instead of just
again. And this is with the benefit. This is with the benefit. The benefit. This is with the benefit of hindsight. When you do think about it, an attack like 9/11 nowadays, like it's one of those you think about it and you're like, it makes sense. In a really weird way. Like, if you're going after a target, that does make relative sense. But you gotta think about this before all this happened, where, one, terrorism and terrorist attack happening in places like America weren't, necessarily the thing that everyone was thinking about, right? Where this is, the early 2000s, the Cold War had really only kind of finished up being a thing that most people were thinking about in, like, 70s and 80s. 60s, 70s, 80s, right? Depending on where you are in the severity of it. And, yeah. It's weird. Quinky dinks abound.
Yeah, I think a lot of... Because I mentioned this, but basically I found articles that were whole lists of, like, 20 or so books that had these weird predictions in them.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I didn't find any that came even close to the wreck of the Titan in terms of the coincidences.
No, that one's weird. That
one is very odd. And if any of these authors is a clairvoyant, it would have to be Morgan Robertson. Because there's too much that's the same. Even the name of the ship.
I feel like if I was Sorry, cat's being weird. If I was a clairvoyant, and for whatever reason I decided I'm gonna write books on all this stuff, I'd be a cheeky dick. I would set a book to release the day before. No, because then they're gonna think I had something to do with it. If it was like a natural disaster type event, I would set the book to release like the day before the event happened, just to shock the world. But if it was anything crime-related, I'd publish it like 14 years beforehand, if I had the time. Because otherwise people are going to be like, hey, you did something, or you knew about this.
So the last thing I want to do is, and I almost forgot to do this, but there are some illustrations from the wreck of the Titan that I just want to show Scoff here. Because the craziest thing is that even the illustrations show exactly how the ship sank.
Okay.
Which is that the front of it kept going down and down and down.
And the back.
And the back with the propellers lifted all the way up out of the water. So I'm going to show you now. And this illustration has the, is it the bow? No, it's the stern. I can never remember. I think it's the stern. The stern of the ship lifting, and you see the propellers, all those giant, smokestacks
things.
And then in the water, all the lifeboats with the people panicking and shouting.
Yeah,
it looks exactly like a screenshot from the movie.
It does. As you can tell, by the way, we're not sailors.
No.
We know very little about the maritime lifestyle. Even, I'm a huge kind of history nerd. I know a decent bit about military history. Naval combat's never really been my area. I should look into it more.
It doesn't have much to do with naval combat. We're just talking about...
knowing
basic
ships
lingo,
etc.
Basic lingo. I'm pretty sure the back is the stern, the bow and the stern.
Sure?
If I remember correctly. But anyways, it's so creepy. And even you can see tiny
little people
falling off the stern towards the propellers, which happens in the movie. It's just so creepy.
Would you survive that fall?
No. If you fall from a certain height into water, it becomes like concrete.
Yeah. I know that if you're parachuting out of a plane or whatever, and your parachute for whatever reason won't work, they actually tell you don't aim for the water.
Yeah.
Because at that point, the way the molecular bonds are going with the speed that you're falling, it's basically concrete on impact.
Yeah. People have had better chances surviving landing in parking lots or on trees.
Yeah. That's interesting.
I'm glad you liked it. I hope our listeners liked it, and I am very excited for more finales because I love this whole Two Truths and a Lie concept.
It is very neat.
I'm very stoked.
Also, falling into water from about 245 feet will be fatal for most people. But there are cases of people dying from falls less than 200 feet. Which, again, 245 feet's freaking massive.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty high up.
Mm-hmm. I didn't think it was that much. I thought it was only like 100, personally.
I mean,
what do I
depends
know?
on the person, right?
Yeah. For me?
It's possible. You're more on the slender side.
Yeah. I'm super little.
Right? Alright. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for listening. We are already pretty far ahead in terms of our recording, so season 2 is going to come out pretty much right after.
Yeah, there's this.
Season 1.
We designate them as seasons just so we can kind of have this little fun thing. Maybe take like a week break if we want.
Yeah, we did it so that if we go on a vacation, we can take that break and not feel bad about it because it's the end of the season.
Yeah.
And that's why we're also recording ahead of time. But yeah, basically, you guys won't have to wait too long before season 2. So we hope you enjoyed, and we will see you next time.
Until then, have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.